All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today for this important announcement. Et bonjour tout le monde. Merci de me joindre à vous pour cette annonce importante. So obviously, we've been going through an exceptionally unique, challenging time in New Brunswick the last few weeks. And as we're hearing from leaders around the world and from our own Premier and Chief Medical Officer, these challenges are going to continue. But in the face of that, I have no doubt that New Brunswickers, with a resilience that's allowed us to carve out a place for ourselves in one of the more inhospitable corners of the world, that we're going to come through this stronger, more united as a province, better able to handle whatever challenges that the world might throw at us in the months and years to come. Alors, dans le contexte d'une pandémie mondiale qui présente des défis exceptionnels, oui, on va voir les défis et nous en sommes en train de vivre dans une période de crise. Mais j'ai aucun doute que la résilience de le peuple de notre province, qui nous a donné l'habilité dans les dernières centaines d'années de créer une province unie et forte dans un coin, pas nécessairement tellement hospitable du monde, qu'on va continuer de bâtir une province encore plus forte, encore plus unie, et que ce virus va être une période dans nos histoires que j'espère dans l'avenir, on va regarder qu'est-ce qu'on a fait et dire, c'était là qu'on a allé à la prochaine étape comme une province, de devenir encore plus fort. So on March 13th, 2020, the All-Party Cabinet Committee agreed to close New Brunswick schools for 2 weeks, effective on March 16th, in response to COVID-19. And prior to that initial closure decision, the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development took steps to protect our schools and early learning centers by ordering individuals who traveled to avoid any public school, early learning facility, or school district office for 14 days. Those measures were taken as a precaution to increase the safety of our staff, children, and students, and to address the anxiety that was then growing about this virus. At the time, some found those measures to be extreme. There were no reported cases of COVID-19 in New Brunswick when those directives were put in place. And today, it is abundantly clear that we made the right call. Lorsque cette décision a été prise, certains ont peut-être trouvé ces mesures extrêmes. Aucun cas de la COVID-19 n'avait été signalé au Nouveau-Brunswick lorsque ces directives ont été mises en place. Aujourd'hui, il ne fait aucun doute. Nous avons pris la bonne décision. Right from the beginning, our primary concern has been public health and safety, and that continues to be true. And that is why, unless the situation drastically improves, schools in New Brunswick will remain closed for the rest of the 2019-20 school year, and the school calendar will not be extended. Depuis le début, notre principale préoccupation était la santé et la sécurité publique. Et c'est certainement encore plus vrai à ce stade-ci de la pandémie. Et voilà pourquoi, à moins que la situation ne s'améliore considérablement, les écoles resteront fermées pour le reste de l'année scolaire 2019-2020 et le calendrier scolaire ne sera pas non plus prolongé. We understand that families have been anxiously awaiting more information about what this will mean for their children's education. So today, I'm here to talk about how we are going to support students during these uncertain times. We are committed to helping students continue their education while school facilities are closed. And to that end, we have developed a plan to provide home learning options to students here in New Brunswick. Anglophone and francophone sectors have developed their own delivery plan and supporting materials that reflect their unique approaches and correspond with curricular outcomes. In the days to come, schools in both sectors will be in contact with families to share home learning options and activities to guide in the development of age-appropriate life skills, along with activities to support physical and mental well-being. Nous tenons vraiment à aider les élèves à poursuivre leurs études pendant la fermeture des établissements scolaires. À cette fin, nous avons élaboré un plan pour offrir des possibilités d'apprentissage à domicile aux élèves de Nouveau-Brunswick. Les secteurs anglophones et francophones au sein de ministres ont conçu ce propre plan de mise en œuvre et de matériel pédagogique de soutien qui reflète des approches uniques et correspondant aux objectifs à atteindre énoncés dans les programmes d'études. Dans les jours à venir, le personnel des écoles de deux secteurs, francophones et anglophones, communiqueront avec les familles. Les parents et les tuteurs seront informés des possibilités d'apprentissage à domicile et des activités pour aider et orienter le développement des compétences de vie adaptées à l'âge, ainsi que des activités suggérées pour le bien-être physique et mental. So students between kindergarten and grade 12 are going to be asked to dedicate between an hour and 2 hours and a half per day to complete these materials, depending on their grade level. Teachers are going to be connecting directly with families to share online resources and activity guides. In addition to completing suggested home learning options, students and families are encouraged to read for a minimum of 30 minutes daily and to engage in 30 minutes of physical activity to promote physical health and mental well-being. Teachers will participate in the planning and development of home learning options, as well as preparing for the eventual return of students to the classroom. In addition to developing and sharing home learning resources, educators will be contacting families to encourage wellness and a sense of connectedness within our school communities. Parents will have a key responsibility to encourage students to complete the provided material and continue learning, but it is important for families to understand that we are not asking them to recreate a classroom in their home or to take on the full role of a teacher. We understand that every family is unique and has a different home environment. We know there are families who face technological barriers, and those families should work with teachers to develop solutions that respond to their needs. Les parents auront certes un rôle important pour veiller à ce que leurs enfants consacrent un certain temps à progresser dans leur parcours scolaire à l'aide du matériel pédagogique qui sera fourni par les écoles. Il est cependant important de préciser que nous ne demandons pas aux familles de recréer une classe dans leur maison ou de jouer pleinement le rôle d'un enseignant. Nous comprenons également que chaque famille a un environnement familial différent et que certaines familles se heurtent à des obstacles technologiques. Ces familles devraient collaborer avec le personnel d'enseignants et les éducatrices pour trouver des solutions qui répondent à leurs besoins. In addition to our continuity of learning plans, we also have answers to many questions we've received from students and parents over the last few weeks. And I encourage those that are not answered here to reach out to me directly through my email, dominic.cardy@gmb.ca, or to reach to me directly on my cell at 506-238-5550. We know that families have been anxious for more information about what current circumstances mean for graduates and the movement of students through the education system. So I'm pleased to share that all students who are positioned academically to continue to the next grade level for the 2020-2021 school year in January 2020 will do so. If you're a grade 12 student who, as of January 2020, was on track to graduate in June 2020, I assure you that you will graduate on time and receive a New Brunswick High School diploma. Je suis vraiment content de vous dire que tous les élèves qui, en janvier 2020, étaient prêts à passer au prochain niveau scolaire pour l'année d'études 2020-2021, le feront. Aux élèves de 12e année qui, en janvier dernier, étaient en voie de terminer leurs études en juin 2020, je peux vous assurer que vous obtiendrez vos diplômes à temps et que vous recevrez un diplôme d'études secondaires de Nouveau-Brunswick. And so that's why we're going to be working with post-secondary institutions to ensure this crisis does not prevent students from being eligible for admission to post-secondary studies in the upcoming school year, assuming things have returned to normal by that point. Of course, the COVID-19 situation is not unique to our province. People around the world are being asked to stay home, to flatten the curve of infection. Schools in jurisdictions around the world have closed. And this is a reality we're going to have to work together to address. And I've been pleased with the collaboration that I've seen and felt in conversations with ministers, other ministers of education and post-secondary education from across the country who've been remaining in weekly contact throughout the initial phases of this pandemic. Decisions on graduation ceremonies and other graduation events will be made in the coming weeks based on direction from the Office of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. All assessments, including exit surveys, have been canceled for the remainder of the year for both sectors. We're currently looking into options for offering students in the anglophone sector the grade 12 French oral proficiency interviews to interested students online or by telephone. And we'll have information on that in the days to come. Finally, mental health continues to be a key concern and a cornerstone of our efforts. The Department of Education and Early Childhood Development has been developing and sharing mental health resources over the last couple of weeks, and the team at the department will continue to make sure that we're providing what supports we can during this difficult time for our staff and for our students. Vous savez, la santé mentale continue d'être une préoccupation majeure. C'est un élément fondamental de nos efforts en matière d'éducation publique. Le ministère de l'Éducation et du Développement de la petite enfance a élaboré et a rendu disponibles des ressources en santé mentale au cours des dernières semaines. And so as we move forward with our plans for the continuity of learning, we have also been working to ensure that families and students can access guides and resources to support mental health and well-being. I'm strongly encouraging families to have open discussions about this situation and participate in activities that promote physical fitness and positive mental health. Families can use this time to nurture creative expression, stay connected with family and friends while respecting social distancing and encouraging social responsibility. I want to thank all of those in the department, in the districts, in the schools across this province, the legions of teachers and EAs and other support staff who've been thinking about, looking towards, and working on plans for supporting our students during this time. And I want to say thank you to the families of New Brunswick who are reaching out in ways that I've never felt before, looking for the tools they need to help continue their children's education. We are going to be there to play our part, and I appreciate deeply your willingness to do yours. This has been an incredibly challenging time, and patience is going to be required for all of us. As governments do in hours or days, what they've traditionally done in months or years, there will be problems. So please reach out and let me know what we can do to make things better. Je tiens à remercier sincèrement tous ceux et celles qui ont déployé beaucoup d'efforts pour trouver de nouvelles façons de continuer à soutenir les élèves pendant cette période incertaine que nous traversons. Je remercie également les familles. Il s'agit d'une situation très inhabituelle et difficile. C'est de jamais vu. Sachez que nous apprécions votre patience et votre collaboration. Et comme toujours, je suis disponible à vous, les citoyens et citoyennes de notre province, parce que c'est votre système d'éducation. Tu peux me contacter par courriel dominic.cardy@gmb.ca ou me contacter sur mon cellulaire 506-238-5550. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Je suis heureux de prendre les questions. Happy to take any questions. I'm also going to say I'm joined here by my deputy ministers, George Daley from the anglophone sector, Marcel Lavoie from the francophone sector, and if there are any technical questions there, we will do the COVID dance up here. One of them will come up and answer any technical questions you might have that I'm not able to answer.
Okay, so we're going to proceed with questions from the media. Just a reminder, you can ask the question in the language of your choice, and that is one question, one follow-up, and if time permits, at the end, we'll run back down the list for another question each. Nous allons maintenant passer les questions des médias. Vous pourrez poser votre question dans la langue de votre choix. Puis rappelez-vous que c'est une question à suivre. Puis si le temps permet à la fin, nous allons faire connaître la liste pour une autre question à chacun. All right, so first up is Jacques, CBC.
Hi, good morning. Can you maybe elaborate on what kind of material you're looking at and just the mechanics of how parents will be asked to deal with it?
Certainly. So for that, I'm going to ask first Mr. Lavoie and then Mr. Daley, because we, of course, do have duality in our education system here, to give an answer there. And perhaps if it's fine, we can have an answer first in French and then in English, because that material can, of course, be used by anyone as we go through the day. So, Mr. Lavoie.
Sorry, I'm not hearing well because someone's phone is off the mute button. And my follow-up question is you said that the school year won't be extended. Is there anything in the contract with the teachers' union that impedes this, like the number of days per school year or when the school year ends, that is in any way an obstacle, or how has the union been to deal with some of these solutions?
Je vais répondre à la première question qui abordait. Merci premièrement pour la question. Alors, à quoi vont ressembler les...
I'm sorry, my question was in English.
Yes, but the minister proposed that we would answer first in French and afterwards we will answer in English. Is that okay?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Donc, pour répondre à la question, à quoi les parents peuvent s'attendre, évidemment, on a des activités qui partent de la maternelle puis qui se rendent jusqu'en 12e année, donc on ne peut pas s'attendre que ça se ressemble. On peut déjà prévoir que les activités pour la maternelle à la 2e année, même pour la 3e à la 5e, ce seront des activités plus ludiques, des activités qui touchent plusieurs disciplines, mais il reste que dans le plan qu'on a proposé, qui sera communiqué aux parents en fin d'après-midi, on pourra voir qu'on a suggéré ou recommandé pour chaque cycle des sujets particuliers. Ça fait que les activités seront proposées autour de ces priorités-là. Là, à partir de là, les enseignants seront présents avec les parents au cours des prochaines semaines pour les aider à interpréter et à voir comment on peut créer un environnement d'apprentissage à la maison qui permet de continuer les apprentissages.
Good morning. Thank you for the question. We've approached it a little different than maybe what some of the other provinces have done. We think it's really important that our teachers have the direct input into what is going up with relation to their students in schools. So we've, at a higher level, established the curriculum areas that will be needed to be covered by each one of the groupings coming through, like K to 2, 3 to 5, and so forth, going up through the system. They will be online resources. We have to understand, under the current state of emergency, we're really limited in our availability to circulate anything or for teachers to get into schools for resources. So teachers will be going through the internet, finding things that are appropriate for the age in their curricular areas, and that will be put up and sent home to parents via different means, electronic websites, email accounts, things of that nature. We also realize that we have parents who may not have access to technology. Teachers will be contacting those parents via phone to have conversations there. And a little different at the grade 11 and 12 level. All students who have had the 12 credits at the end of first semester in January will graduate, as the minister has indicated. What we are doing, though, as well is if students already are in an online course, they will be able to continue with that course. We've got somewhere around 17 teachers and I think 1,100 students that are in that situation, so they'll be able to complete those courses. And we're also offering the opportunity to the schools who can develop courses within a relatively short period of time that they could turn it into an online environment, that students will be able to finish that curriculum components. And if the school administrator and principal and teacher is satisfied that they've met the core requirements, they will still be able to earn a credit that will show up on their transcript. So we are not going to hold this particular crisis against anyone, but we're going to try to, as well as we can, still provide the opportunity for them to continue the learning in those core areas.
And sorry, my follow-up, sorry I misheard you earlier, but my follow-up was whether the Federation is on board with this and whether the contract presents any obstacles to doing any of this.
So it's Minister back again, and I've got to say that the collaboration between the teachers' unions, francophone and anglophone, the Federation, and also mentioning CUPE as well, has been exceptional throughout this. And the reason why we're not looking at, we're looking at right now, as I've just announced, ending this school year and not prolonging it, this is because of COVID-19, not because of collective bargaining issues. We're going to make decisions based on the health and welfare of our students and staff, and so far we've had excellent support from all the federations and the Federation and the unions, and I'm hopeful that will continue because we are literally all in this together. And I think as we move towards recognizing that this is an exceptional circumstance that requires exceptional measures, many of the traditional barriers and divisions that we've seen in this province are already breaking down, and you can see that in the way that we have an all-party committee handling a response to this pandemic, something that is unique in Canada and sets an example for the rest of the world. And I am very proud of not just all the parties in the legislature, but the unions and the way that they have handled their response to this crisis as well. And I hope that will continue.
Thanks, Jacques. Ben Barnett, CHJ News. Simon avec l'Acadie Nouvelle. Rachel Cave, CBC.
Clearly, the briefing was just so comprehensive that no one has any questions.
Andrew Waugh, Telegraph.
Hi, I'm here. I guess my first question, I was kind of struggling to hear a little bit, but obviously there seems to be a provision for students who are currently failing to still recover those grades and pull out. Just correct me if I'm wrong on that. And also, has there been any thought of starting the 2020-2021 school year earlier than usual?
So I'll take your second question and I'll answer that, then I'll ask the deputies to give the answers in English and French, which again, I'm going to do for each of the questions where there's something sector specific, that having the information specifically for francophone and anglophone sectors, hopefully that'll provide more complete information, and also any journalists who are planning and asking the question in the other official language, then will have additional questions they can ask so we can be as open as possible. So in terms of next school year, this is a timetable being driven by COVID-19, not by the education system. We are going to make decisions based on where we are in controlling the spread of the disease and on advice again from the chief medical officer and the team at the health department. So that's going to be the basis for that. We'll let you know as soon as we have any updates along those lines. But for today, to repeat, the 2019-2020 school year is finished. It will not be extended, and we will revisit with information around September 2020 in due course. And I'll now ask Mr. Lavoie to respond to the specific questions around students who have were failing in January and what the options are for them moving forward to catch up and pass on to the next year or graduate.
Est-ce que je peux demander que la question soit reposée? Je l'ai juste mal entendue.
Andrew, can you repeat your first question for the deputy, please?
Sorry. So my first question was, students who are currently sort of looking at a failing grade, are there provisions for them to, recover that grade, or do they fail the grade and have to repeat the year?
C'est une excellente question. Le message qu'on donne actuellement, c'est, puis ce que l'ensemble des districts et des enseignants ont eu comme message, c'est que la fermeture des écoles ne devrait pas affecter les élèves et ne devrait pas affecter leurs apprentissages. Et tous les élèves devraient normalement passer au niveau supérieur, où les élèves de 12e année qui devaient obtenir leur diplôme devraient obtenir leur diplôme comme prévu. Dans certains cas, on va avoir, puis c'est surtout au secondaire, avec la situation où on a des crédits de la 10e à la 12e année, on a certains élèves qui probablement étaient dans une situation d'échouer leur cours. Puis ces élèves-là vont se retrouver dans une situation où ils n'ont pas la chance de pouvoir se rattraper. Donc à ce moment-là, ce qui est proposé, c'est que les écoles et les enseignants se penchent sur ces cas-là pour voir comment on fait pour donner une seconde chance à ces élèves-là de reprendre le cours de leur trajet pour faire en sorte qu'ils aient la chance d'obtenir leur crédit et de passer au niveau suivant. Merci.
Thanks, Andrew. The two sectors have a little different approach on credits. The Francophone side starts credits in grade 10. The Anglophones have it in 11 and 12. So you would usually need to have 17 credits on the Anglophone side to graduate. What we've said, if you have 12 completed at the end of first semester this year, that would indicate that you were on track. So what you would be referring to would be a student who at the end of January would not have had 12 credits. Typically, if a student was short 2 credits, they would not be able to catch up. If they were short 1 credit, schools would look at the potential of a credit recovery, and that would be something that would happen later in the school year, providing that they had passed their 5 other courses. So what will happen is this will go back to the individual high schools for the credit recovery processes they have, and we're going to trust our principals to follow similar methods that they would have in the past to see if there is an opportunity for credit recovery, what that might look like, and whether they can offer that to a student, and then if the student is going to be able to complete it to still meet graduation requirements.
Andrew, did you have a follow-up?
I do, thank you. So several other provinces have extended out school closures until the 1st of May, kind of leaving that option open. Can you just talk me through why the decision has been made to go all the way now and not wait and that's in a few weeks?
I see no evidence to suggest that we will be through this crisis at a time when we would then have sufficient time to be able to clean, reopen our schools, and make the necessary preparations to resume the 2019-2020 school year. So if that information does become available and there is a miracle cure suddenly that is found, is proven to work, of course we'll look at that. But at this point, we have no reason to believe that the situation will be recoverable for this school year. And again, we'll be continuing to look at that, but we wanted to make sure that parents and students had some degree of confidence in an extremely difficult time to know that at least when it comes to the school year, now you know what you're dealing with. This is going to be our reality for the next few months, and we're going to do our very best to make this system work.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Tom, are you there? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for your time. First of all, Minister, I wonder about
Just go online.
Sorry, am I still here?
Yep, you're still there. Someone just has their television on. If they could turn that down or mute their phone. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Lovely. Yeah, for the Minister, I wonder about impacts on support staff, substitute teachers, bus drivers, educational assistants. We've seen those types of workers get layoff notices in other provinces. What's the situation here?
At this point, we're respecting our collective agreements fully and looking to continue to work to support our staff as well as our students. If there are any updates on that, of course, we'll let you know. But again, right now, the announcement I've made today, that is our plan for the rest of this school year.
Do you have a follow-up, Tom?
Yeah, I do. On a slightly different note, what can students at various levels of the system and their parents expect in terms of interactions with their teachers? I guess it would be on a one-to-one level now for the duration of the year. And forgive me if I missed this earlier on.
No, that wasn't specifically covered, but absolutely, we're expecting everyone in the school system to respect social distancing requirements and to make sure that they limit physical contact with not just students, but with everyone. Same way as we're all being asked, the same thing we're all being asked to do. So the expectation is that it'll be one-on-one, largely electronic, because of course, again, social distancing requirements make any sort of physical one-on-one interaction difficult and potentially dangerous. So the goal is to provide that personalized support that we've talked about for a long, long time in education. We've moved towards it rather more rapidly and certainly not in the way we would have expected or wanted. But at least this was the direction that our education system was moving, to try and make sure that every student was being met where they are in their learning journey and that the teachers and other support staff were there to help them. And we're going to do our best to continue that through this very difficult time with the obvious limitations that the virus is imposing on all of our life and work.
Thanks, Tom.
So, sorry, just practically, does that mean, like a phone call a week kind of thing for the average student in the average class size, or?
Well, that's going to be, part of it is going to be going down to the school and to the teacher level of letting them work out those relationships. But certainly the expectation is regular contact between teachers and students.
Vicki, thanks, Tom. Vicki Holgarth, Charlotte County TV.
Hi, Mr. Cardy. I'm just wondering, some kids don't have present parents. So how do you plan to work with students, especially in the younger grades, whose parents can't give assistance in their education at home?
Well, that comes back to the personalization and trying to make sure that as much as possible that the teachers who already do this, and we've got an astonishing group of teachers in this province who are trying to do that all the time with kids who might come from a more difficult background, might not have parents who are able to provide the supports that we would hope or expect. And the teachers are going to be reaching out in an even more difficult circumstance to provide support that's even more important, which is why our teachers are, again, as I always say, and our education staff are the most important people in this province, because they make sure that everything that's good about New Brunswick is carried on to the next generation.
Do you have a follow-up, Vicki?
Yes, I'm just wondering, and maybe you can't answer this, but in terms of breakfast programs, are you working with those kids as well? And in terms of providing possibly internet services to kids that don't have those, how does that work?
So with anything to do with breakfast programs and so on, obviously that's no longer being done through the school system because of the fact the school system is closed. And I've been really, really pleased by the outpouring of support for nonprofit groups across the province who've been stepping in to replace some of those programs. Because it was although in the recent budget we talked about having a school food program for the first time, something I'm looking forward to getting back to develop, breakfast programs had been largely supported by the nonprofit and business community groups in recent years, so that nearly every school in New Brunswick had one. And so many of those groups have just kept on going and come up with new ways of delivering those supports and services, which obviously are even more essential at a time like this when insecurity and inability to get to grocery stores and other retail outlets is become that much more difficult because of the context of the pandemic. And I'm sorry, your second question was?
I'm just wondering for kids that possibly don't have access to a computer or internet, how will you be working with those families to have easier access to learning?
So there have been government-level discussions with our telecom companies, and we've certainly seen in other places a willingness by those companies to step up and help out. We've been talking about other options, from community cable to working with newspapers to get inserts out, and we're going to keep on exploring all of those different options because every family is different, and New Brunswick, it's an unfortunate reality, we still do have small corners of this province without access to high-speed internet, and the high-speed internet we do enjoy is certainly being put under unprecedented pressure because everyone's at home, and efforts to try and deal with those specific cases are going to be exactly the reason why we want to have this school-based, teacher-led approach so that we can find out what the needs are, so we can collect that data. And so one of the few bright spots in this incredibly difficult time is the fact that we're going to be able to get a lot of information about the reality facing our students in this province and be able to use that to design better and better programs to make sure that we can strengthen our education system going forward. So we're going to make sure we take advantage of that opportunity to be able to, again, hopefully improve the quality of education for every student in the province, and particularly those who, as you were mentioning, are either food insecure, don't have access to the technology that today you need and would expect, and work to support every New Brunswick student in their path.
Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you.
Mike Cameron, CTV.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. I wonder if you could walk us through what you envision as a typical lesson, and I know that would differ from grade level to grade level, but just walk us through a typical lesson for a student, how it would be conducted, and how it would be evaluated by the teacher, whether it would be actually marked or if this is more of an informal kind of learning situation. Just walk us through what you envision as a typical lesson.
Sure, I'm going to, I'll put a bit of broad context around that, then I'll ask deputies to give some sector-specific answers again. Because the goal here is really important to repeat this. The goal is not to ask teachers or to ask parents to become teachers and for the living room to become a classroom. We recognize that in many cases, parents are being asked to work from home. And I've certainly heard from families who are having huge challenges as you have two parents at home trying their best to earn their paychecks to keep bread and butter on the table, and at the same time, students who are sometimes at loose ends and are going to, as we move into having a more formal approach to distance education, are going to need that extra level of support as well, as we're announcing here today. So the goal is not to impose unrealistically high expectations on parents or students. Let's be honest about this. We're going into a difficult period where everyone around the world recognizes that in the next few weeks, we're going to be on, no matter how much we succeed in flattening the curve of coronavirus infections in New Brunswick, we're going to be facing difficult situations. The Chief Medical Officer has been clear on that. There will be hospitalizations. Loved ones will die. This is going to be a difficult time for our province. And our goal is to make sure that we can do our very best to try and support our learners and their families through that time. But we are not expecting this to be a normal school year with the classroom just replaced with a home environment. We recognize these are exceptional circumstances. So your question also, it's going to vary a lot, the answer to your question, based on grades. We have lower expectations, obviously, at the younger years academically than we do for the higher years, which I think makes sense. But I'll ask again Marcel Lavoie to give the perspective on what an average lesson might look like in the francophone sector, and then Mr. Daley to do the same for the anglophone sector.
Merci pour la question. Encore une fois, c'est difficile de décrire à quoi pourrait ressembler une activité, dépendant du niveau. C'est sûr que dans les premiers niveaux, on peut s'attendre que ce sera plus ludique, on peut s'attendre à des exemples où les parents auront à jouer, à participer, à lire avec les enfants, à faire en sorte qu'on les encadre un peu plus. Un peu comme le ministre de l'Éducation vient d'indiquer, on ne souhaite pas donner la tâche ou la responsabilité aux parents de devenir des éducateurs. Au contraire, les parents devraient profiter de l'occasion pour donner des responsabilités aux enfants. Il n'y a aucune raison pour laquelle vous ne devriez pas demander à vos enfants que ce soit eux qui proposent des horaires d'apprentissage, que ce soit eux qui proposent comment ça va fonctionner, de les encourager autour de ça, de leur demander c'est quoi les obstacles qu'ils rencontrent par rapport à leurs apprentissages. Mais ça devrait être aussi un moment où on profite de l'occasion pour donner un peu de contrôle aux jeunes à choisir comment ils vont vivre ça. Ça fait que c'est sûr que quand on parle des premiers niveaux, le parent va être plus présent. Plus on avance dans les niveaux, bien, plus les concepts académiques vont devenir formels. Dans ce cadre-là, c'est sûr que les enseignants vont être près de vous. On pense que les enseignants aussi et les parents vont devenir de collaborateurs de très près, où est-ce qu'on communique, on voit ensemble comment ça progresse, on voit les défis ou les obstacles qui sont rencontrés, puis on essaie d'enlever ces obstacles-là ensemble. Il y a des élèves aussi qui ont des plus grandes difficultés. Certains de ces élèves-là ont déjà des plans d'intervention établis avec les écoles. C'est sûr que les écoles vont vouloir accompagner ces familles-là de plus près pour faire en sorte que les mêmes apprentissages qui étaient dans les plans individualisés soient suivis. Fait qu'il y a tellement de particularités par rapport à tout ce qu'on va vivre qui vont faire en sorte qu'on va devoir s'adapter. Ça fait que le plan qui est proposé aujourd'hui, c'est un plan qui est un plan de départ dans lequel les enseignants, puis la relation enseignants et famille va s'installer. Les enseignants non plus ne sont pas habitués à la situation, puis vont devoir créer, comprendre, bâtir à partir de l'information qu'ils ont pour essayer de faire en sorte que la maison devienne un lieu d'apprentissage le plus adéquat. Fait que, ouais.
Thanks, Mike. There's nothing going to be typical in this particular situation, and I think we got to reinforce that we're not trying to reproduce schools at home and that expectations on parents. We're going to present learning options to students and families, and they will be different types of feedback opportunities depending on those learning options and the tools that the schools gave the parents and the students to use. So. I'm excited about the energy that I've seen around this the last couple of days dealing with teachers. And I know we're in a difficult situation here, but I think coming out the other side, we've got a chance to reform education in a way that we've never had before. And I've had some think tanks with some groups of educators from across the province, and they're throwing out some great ideas of how they want to go about this. A week ago, we introduced a closed Facebook site for educators, and within 4 days, we had 3,600 educators on there sharing resources that they could find across the internet that would be appropriate for their content, subject area, and grade levels. So there's a vast array of options that they have out there, so it is going to be interesting to see the product of it. The other one I want to mention is we've got a very positive story here in New Brunswick with our Flora program, which is a French language program that we've developed. It was mainly for schools who didn't have access to French immersion, and it has proved to be very successful since our rollout. And through this situation, we've been able to put plans in place that we'll be able to roll it out province-wide, K-4, so all of our students will have access to that French second language learning. And we have other provinces contacting us that are interested in looking at our software. So, in the middle of a bad situation, there is some good news stories.
Mike, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just quickly, if you don't mind, and thank you for the answers. Just wondering if you folks have looked elsewhere into other jurisdictions, just when you're putting this package together. I mean, looking at other jurisdictions, what might be working well elsewhere or might not be working so well elsewhere. or if this is, what you would consider a made in New Brunswick kind of situation. Thanks.
Thanks. It was certainly a made in New Brunswick solution, but one that took inspiration, just like New Brunswick, in all of its good elements, takes inspiration from elsewhere. And we looked at what other provinces were doing, certainly did a scan around the world as well. And as I was mentioning in my remarks earlier, one of the few bright sides to this pandemic has been the increased level of cooperation and communication between different provinces, and I know and with the federal government as well. And there again have been weekly calls between the education and post-secondary education ministers and senior staff over the last number of weeks talking about exactly this. Yesterday there was a session talking about continuity of education plans across the provinces and updates on how things are going and how things might not be working as well. So everyone is largely in the same position around the world. No one's ever tried to run a modern education system without schools. So it's going to be far too early to say what's working or not working. All I can assure New Brunswickers is that we are making sure that we stay in touch with colleagues across the country. I've been in my capacity as president of the Coalition of Francophone Education Ministers around the world, a position New Brunswick holds right now, have also been hearing from education systems in Africa and across Europe. So there are fascinating efforts underway in lots of different countries to try and combat the attack on education by COVID-19, and we're going to continue to try and learn from the best and share our successes and our failures as well. Because again, let's be realistic. When policies are developed in hours and days, not months and weeks, months and years rather, we're going to end up with things that we thought were great ideas and don't work so well. And there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with sharing that with the public, and I'll be here to do that.
Thank you, Minister.
Jean-Philippe, Radio-Canada Moncton.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question, c'est pour Monsieur Cardy. En fait, j'aimerais qu'il m'explique exactement quel sera le rôle du professeur. Parce que là, est-ce qu'il va y avoir une plateforme entière mise à la disposition de tous les élèves où réellement le professeur devra entrer en contact avec chaque famille et chaque élève pour assurer des enseignements malgré que ce soit à distance?
Okay. Merci beaucoup pour la question. Et encore, en contexte de notre système dual en éducation, je vais demander aux sous-ministres Lavoie et Daley de répondre avec les spécifiques pour les deux secteurs. Mais en grand, absolument, l'expectation est que les enseignants et enseignantes vont être en contact avec les élèves, avec les familles des élèves. Et c'est nécessaire à cause du distance sociale imposée sur tout le monde à ce point. Alors, je vais juste arrêter un peu de secondes parce qu'il y a beaucoup de bruit sur la ligne. Si tout le monde sur la ligne peut mettre le mute sur la télévision ou radio, parce que ça rend vraiment difficile de répondre aux questions. Alors encore, c'est pour la responsabilité des enseignants et enseignantes, ça va être différent avec chaque élève, chaque famille, mais absolument l'expectation est qu'ils vont être en contact avec chaque élève, chaque famille, dans une façon régulière. C'est clair qu'il y a les élèves qui n'ont pas besoin de beaucoup de soutien, qui sont automotivés, ils vont faire tout le travail, probablement encore plus. Il y a les autres qui ont besoin de soutien. Il y a les familles qui ont besoin de soutien, parce que pour eux, d'être prêts pour partager dans l'éducation de leurs jeunes, ce n'est pas quelque chose qu'ils sont habitués de faire. Alors, absolument, ça va être différent dans chaque contexte, chaque famille, chaque salle, chaque classe, chaque école, chaque district. Mais en grand, on demande encore à nos enseignants et enseignantes d'être là et je suis confiant qu'ils sont là pour aider dans ce contexte difficile de faire tout qu'on peut pour assurer la continuation de l'éducation de nos jeunes. Et de tout ce que j'ai entendu, de partout dans le système, anglophone, francophone, secondaire, primaire, nos éducateurs, éducatrices, nos enseignants, enseignantes, ils sont prêts. Ils sont prêts pour prendre cette tâche en main et je suis absolument certain qu'on peut, avec eux autres, le travail formidable qu'ils font tous les jours, qu'on va surmonter les défis qui sont présents devant nous aujourd'hui, mais encore pour les contextes encore spécifiques pour chaque secteur, M. Lavoie et M. Daley après.
Merci pour la question. La fonction d'un enseignant demeure la même. Un enseignant, son quotidien se ressemble à avoir des objectifs d'apprentissage, puis ensuite fournir un environnement d'apprentissage pour que les élèves apprennent ce qu'on souhaite ou ce qu'on vise. On réalise que c'est beaucoup plus simple quand on a un enseignant dans un local avec 22 élèves. Là, aujourd'hui, les 22 élèves sont à la maison, dans des contextes variés, dans des situations différentes, comme le ministre vient de le décrire. À partir de là, il va falloir qu'on devienne créatif. Puis les enseignants ont démontré jusqu'à présent qu'ils ont le goût de vouloir s'engager puis de vouloir faire une différence. Puis toutes les conversations qu'on a eues avec les districts scolaires jusqu'à présent, puis la collaboration qui s'est installée déjà, et aussi avec l'Association des enseignants, c'est qu'on souhaite travailler ensemble puis faire en sorte qu'on va avancer là-dedans. Ça fait que le plan, encore une fois, qui est avancé, c'est d'abord un plan ou une structure où est-ce qu'on propose de commencer avec ça. On propose ensuite aux enseignants de commencer comme première étape à établir un contact par téléphone avec chacun des parents pour discuter puis identifier comment ils vont vouloir collaborer dans le futur, puis de s'assurer que tout est en place. Puis dans certains cas, ce sera très simple, puis tous les éléments sont déjà favorables à l'apprentissage. Dans d'autres cas, ce ne le sera pas. Puis il faudra essayer de voir ensemble comment on trouve des solutions à ça. Fait qu'il n'y a pas nécessairement une plateforme où est-ce qu'on va on va pouvoir nécessairement reproduire tout le temps la classe traditionnelle qu'on connaît. C'est sûr qu'on a déjà en place des cours en ligne, par exemple au secondaire, puis dans ce cas-là, ce sera probablement beaucoup plus simple. Mais encore une fois, il faut s'adapter à la situation. On a proposé 2,5 heures d'apprentissage au niveau secondaire. Les élèves aujourd'hui au secondaire, pas aujourd'hui, mais avant la fermeture, faisaient 5 heures à chaque jour d'apprentissage. Donc, déjà là, on était déjà en train de penser à faut coordonner, faut prioriser. On ne pourra pas nécessairement avoir exactement la même chose qu'on avait avant à la maison. On ne pourra pas reproduire ce qu'on avait à l'école nécessairement. C'est sûr que les cours en ligne vont aider, mais toute la programmation n'était pas en ligne. Ça fait que les enseignants vont devoir s'adapter à la réalité. Mais on est confiant que c'est par la collaboration avec l'ensemble des intervenants en éducation et l'ensemble des parents qu'on va arriver à faire quelque chose qui est relativement bien.
I'll go back to the previous question as well and tie the two of these together because we have reached out to other jurisdictions. There were some jurisdictions that rolled out some interfaces very quickly that had material online. And what they quickly discovered was that personal contact wasn't there and the understanding of the individual wasn't always there. So that was something that we were focused on trying to get right, and that's why we focused on mental health component, personal contact off the bat as a priority for us. And I think the other part is that we want our teachers who know their schools, who know their students, who know their communities, to then go and find the resources that match the curriculum that they would usually be asked to cover to make sure that there's connection there between that entire family of education. We're also going to be asking our educators to work in teams to do planning. You know, we don't have people out there who are experts in taking an entire system and turning this into an online program. So we've all got learning to do on it, and we're going to do that together. So there's going to be a lot of work for educators. Some will be extremely comfortable with this. They will have access and knowledge of technological skills that will carry us through. And some others, this is going to be a challenge for them, and we're going to have to be there to support them and give them the professional development they need to be able to move this along.
As-tu une suivi, Jean-Philippe?
Oui. Je ferme le son, excusez-moi. OK, mon suivi, c'est toujours pour M. Cardy. C'est au sujet des garderies. Le gouvernement dit que pour les enfants qui sont en attente de place, le nombre, ça atteindrait 185 enfants en attente d'une place. Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire, M. Cardy, pour régler le problème des enfants en attente, alors que plusieurs propriétaires de garderies ne veulent pas réouvrir parce qu'ils ont peur d'être exposés à la COVID-19?
Merci beaucoup pour la question. Sur la question de l'éducation au niveau de petite enfance, on a pris, juste pour le mettre en contexte, une des décisions qu'on a prises dans le contexte de fermer les systèmes scolaires était, OK, première chose qu'on a besoin de faire est assurer que les travailleurs qui ont besoin de rester en place, les gens qui travaillent dans les secteurs de santé, etc., qu'ils ont une place, une garderie pour leurs enfants. Parce que c'est inacceptable d'ajouter un autre niveau de pression sur ces gens qu'on demande aujourd'hui de mettre leur vie en ligne, sur la première ligne pour nous. De dire que, OK, mais tu as besoin d'occuper de toi-même, de trouver quelqu'un pour garder tes enfants. Alors, on a créé un système provincial dans une semaine. Et je suis incroyablement fier du travail qui a été fait par tout le monde dans le système pour créer ce système. J'attends encore parce qu'il y a encore quelqu'un en ligne qui n'a pas muté leur micro. OK. Alors, après ça, on a entré en contact avec les garderies parce qu'en Nouveau-Brunswick, la grande majorité de nos garderies sont les entreprises privées. Et on a reçu une réponse énormément positive qui nous a aidé de créer ce système provincial dans juste quelques jours. Alors, c'est encore quelque chose d'incroyable et positif, quelque chose que tous les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises devraient être fiers. Il y a encore les endroits dans la province qu'on n'a pas encore assez de place et on continue de travailler avec les garderies privées, mais aussi de regarder la possibilité d'utiliser les ressources publiques pour créer les garderies. Parce qu'on entend des éducateurs et éducatrices qui sont prêts eux-mêmes de travailler, mais on a besoin clairement d'avoir les locations appropriées pour les garderies dans ce contexte. Alors, dans les journées qui arrivent, on va continuer de développer ces options et assurer que tous les travailleurs et travailleuses essentiels dans la province ont accès à une garderie pour leurs enfants pendant la période de cette pandémie. J'espère que ça répond à ton question.
Merci. Megan?
Hello. The province has a lower than average adult literacy rate. Do you have concerns about the ability of parents to step in and teach?
Thanks for the question, and absolutely. I mean, one of the things that motivated me to get into politics here at home years and years ago was the fact that literacy is the cornerstone of a democracy. And it's the cornerstone of an open society. And in this time of crisis, when we're looking at having to support and strengthen our democratic institutions in the face of a global pandemic, democracy, the rule of law, and those institutions become even more important. And that foundation of literacy on which they all rest becomes even more critical. So absolutely, every person in any democratic society who cannot read and write, we've been denying them a gift that allows them to participate more fully in their society. One of my hopes throughout this process is that the tools that are shared online can be equally used by parents as they can by students. And certainly that's what I heard from some folks in other countries who are trying to use this opportunity again, this crisis as an opportunity to advance learning. Is that something that might happen here? We're certainly going to be working on that, and we are absolutely designing our programs with complete awareness of that challenge, because it is certainly one that has long existed in the province, and the task of trying to reduce the level of illiteracy in New Brunswick isn't one that stops because of the virus.
Do you have a follow-up, Megan?
Yes. Will there be education programs for those daycare centers that are still open for the children of essential services workers?
There's the curriculum and other documents for early childhood education centers remains in place. I can tell you that we are not going to be going out to enforce the standards in the way that would normally be the case. We have spent years in New Brunswick working to talk about how early childhood education is not daycare. It's an essential part of the education system. And it becomes more essential with every passing year as all the research and information around the way that children's brains work and develop shows us that those early years are critical. In this context, though, we are talking about a place where parents can safely and securely drop their kids while they go out to do work that in some cases is dangerous and in all cases is essential for keeping us as a province safe during this pandemic. So we're absolutely hoping that as much as possible, those essential workers, daycares, will be providing education material. But my word today is to thank them for stepping up in a period of difficulty, to thank them for keeping their doors open or for opening their doors to look after those children. Because if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to manage the healthcare system, we wouldn't be able to keep the trucking and retail sectors open. So I want to say a word of thanks to the daycare operators and the educators in that system for stepping up when your province needed you.
Thanks, Megan. Jim, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, the scholarships, bursaries, and awards are vital to some graduates. Has access to any of those been limited in any way?
The intention is to work with post-secondary institutions, community colleges, people who are handing out different scholarships and other supports for students, and to work to try and make sure there's as little interruption there as possible. Again, this is a global pandemic, so everyone is in the same position we are in terms of coming up with answers to those questions. So that gives me a level of comfort that we're going to be seeing a level of reasonableness from all of the scholarship granting institutions and individuals, that they obviously want to get through this. They want to support our exceptional young people as they go on to post-secondary education, and we're looking forward to working with them in the months to come.
Do you have a follow-up, Jim?
Yes, just are there any students that will be at risk for not getting credit that they may need to enter post-secondary?
Well, I think we addressed some of that in the statements to be made already, but any student who is in line academically in January to graduate will graduate. So that should answer most of those questions, and we're working with the universities, because I had a couple of examples given, for example, of calculus classes and other more high-level classes where it might be hard to replicate that teaching at home under any circumstances. There is going to be, and we've heard this from the universities, there's going to be flexibility and accommodations made. We already have, in linking back to the previous question around reading levels, we have our universities offering reading and writing courses in first year for first-year students, something I'm hoping that we can move away from in years to come as our standards increase. But in the context of this pandemic, it's clear that our universities and post-secondary institutions have already shown a willingness to be flexible, to recognize the reality of the students that are entering into their system, and I've got no reason to think that they won't continue that flexible and open-minded approach as we deal with the consequences of this COVID-19 pandemic.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Simon avec l'Académie Nouvelle.
Oui, bonjour Monsieur Cardy. Il y a une question sur le sujet des garderies. Et je veux savoir si on peut s'attendre à une réouverture des garderies de la petite enfance avant celle des écoles, peut-être au cours de l'été. Et également, il y a plusieurs parents qui doivent apparemment payer des frais plus ou moins importants pour garder leur place en garderie. Est-ce que vous avez des consignes, des directives par rapport à ça?
Okay, il n'y a aucun changement dans le plan. Les garderies sont les entreprises privées. Et c'est à eux de décider, dans leur contexte, si c'est approprié de continuer de demander les frais des parents. Je demande aux garderies, s'il vous plaît, prendre accès au programme fédéral, provincial pour vous soutenir pendant cette période de difficulté, d'être conscient du fait que toutes les familles dans la province, nous sommes tous dans la même crise. Alors, je suis certain que l'énorme majorité des garderies va être raisonnable dans ce temps, et j'ai entendu ça, mais ce n'est pas au gouvernement d'aujourd'hui de dire qu'on va créer un autre grand programme quand on essaie de soutenir notre économie, notre population pendant la période initiale de cette pandémie. Alors, tous les ressources que je peux dévouer au système de santé, pour les gens qui sont sur la première ligne, pour la bataille contre ce virus, c'est là où je veux vraiment cibler mes ressources. Alors, c'est pour ça qu'on a ciblé nos efforts la première semaine pour les garderies des travailleurs essentiels, et on va continuer dans la même direction. Sur la question de est-ce que les garderies vont ouvrir avant que les écoles, ce n'est absolument pas mon intention. On va avoir le système pour les travailleurs essentiels qui va continuer pendant ce temps, mais je ne peux pas imaginer un contexte où les garderies et les écoles vont ouvrir à une temps différente. Si ça change, si l'évidence change, je suis toujours ouvert à les nouvelles informations, mais dès qu'aujourd'hui, le système d'éducation dans le Nouveau-Brunswick s'est fermé.
Simon, tu as une suivi?
Non, merci beaucoup.
Merci. Kevin Bissett, are you there? Okay, have I missed anybody on the line before we wrap up? No? Okay, great.
Thank you all very much. Stay safe. Merci.
Thank you.